Ellen, could you make a note for people to go to my timeline, please? Turn that again. All right. We are recording. We are live on Facebook and we are on Zoom. So we have a watch party happening as well. So that is absolutely fantastic. Thank you everyone for your patience and me dealing with technology. And for those of you who don't know me, I am Helen Bello. I am the director of Welcome Home Toronto, to a body, mind, spirit connection. And Welcome Home promotes mindfulness, oneness, and community through meditation classes, workshops, special events, such as this one tonight, our Conscious Cafe. And our commitment and desire is for you to learn how to consciously grow in the direction of the life that you desire. My special guest tonight is a dear, esteemed mentor of mine for a number of years. Dr. Badri Rickhi is a physician, and he is the Associate Professor of Medicine at the University of Calgary. On his own volition, he financed and raised money to create the Canadian Institute of Natural and Integrative Medicine, a not-for-profit organization. And this organization, CINM, is currently recognized as a world leader in integrative medicine research. In 2009, Dr. Rickhi was awarded the prestigious Dr. Rogers Prize, the world's largest monetary award for pioneers and leaders in the field of integrative medicine. Dr. Rickhi studied traditional Chinese medicine, Tibetan Ayurvedic, Indian medicine, Rodaraku, Japanese medicine. He's also trained in functional energy and quantum physics medicine. He has been appointed advisor to Health Canada on complementary therapies, as well as to the World Health Organization. He was the first Canadian member to sit on the executive committee of the Consortium of Academic Centers for Integrative Medicine, currently comprised of 42 North American universities. Oh, and it just gets better from here. He works collaboratively with a number of international centers for health and wellness. He has developed home spiritual wellness programs for stress and depression, which have been scientifically investigated and published in peer-reviewed medical journals. He's worked with professional athletes. Dr. Rickhi is a published researcher who lectures internationally. He has participated as an expert in integrative medicine in televised documentaries. His workshops in spirituality have been broadcast on the Wisdom Channel. He is currently involved with the innovative online therapy program that addresses the rising concern of teenage depression and suicide. And this was designed with the input of teenagers. And about 12 years ago, Dr. Rickhi organized a small group of friends to initiate a philanthropic project in one of the poorest regions of India. To date, this program has created reforestation, a recycling program, a school, a state-of-the-art hospital, a nursing school, as well as rural health centers. It also provides clothes and clean water and feeds more than 100,000 people a month. This project was recently acknowledged by the Indian government as one of the major projects to positively impact the Indian people. And Dr. Rickhi believes that it is the responsibility of health professionals to be visionary in the area of health, and that true scientists are those who look for opportunities to understand the unknown. He believes that service to humanity without attachments is the most fulfilling human experience. As well, Dr. Rickhi is the author of the book, The Cosmic Game, and we do have copies of that at Welcome Home, as well as he is now hosting a series on YouTube, Something is Not Right with Spirituality. And on the Welcome Home Facebook page, I have posted the first episode of this YouTube series. So it is my pleasure and my honor to have you join me. Thank you so much, Badri. And you just have so much to offer. And I think one of the things, there are a couple of things I would love to touch into tonight.
Oh.
One is certainly your new series, which really touches on some profound points about our relationship to spirituality in these times, and especially with in North America, and how and just how disconnected sometimes we've become from who we truly are. But also, I would love to hear more about your research and the work that you are doing with teens and depression, because I do understand that suicide is the #1 cause of death now in North America between the ages of 10 and 52. And it is certainly something that has impacted our community recently. So, and I think there's a mental health problem that is going to become far more prevalent as we move through this time of isolation. So I have been talking and talking and talking, and I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you. First of all, the feeling is mutual. I've learned so many things from you as well. And that's the beauty about sharing with everyone. You know, we all have pieces of wisdom that when we put together as a composite, we become so much better amongst ourselves rather than one person being some leader who dictates to others.
Mm.
So thank you for asking me to share.
Well, we've had, our Conscious Cafe started out in-house before everything was shut down, and was incredibly successful because the idea behind it was to bring leaders in different modalities of healthcare and have them share their experience, their expertise, and to have a conversation. And so we've had some really interesting people on over the last couple of months online. A radiologist who's become a dear member of our community, and I feel like he's a friend, and he's talking about radical art and community healthcare and quantum physics, and then other people that are bringing in their ideas. So your series, I think, really hits the mark right now, and I'm curious as to why you decided to create the series.
Yeah, actually, it was a request from people because they were saying that they were becoming confused because they were looking at situations, for example, with corruption and spirituality, with yogis or gurus or priests or whatever, money, and all these sorts of things. So we sent out a questionnaire and asked people, and we got replies from all over the world. Surprisingly, a huge portion of the people were from Australia, and they asked different questions. So that was a little over a year and a half ago. And then what we did was I met with, for example, highly evolved Buddhist priests who live in forest retreats and just come out for a period of time or things like that, got their philosophy, talk to spiritual leaders all over the world. But also, I mentioned to you, I work with quantum physicists. We study consciousness and how consciousness makes changes within us that we're not even aware. And then looked at the literature and started to look at what has science told us about some of the questions that we ask. So the series really is about putting things out there, not trying to convince anybody of any one position, but letting them know, here is what science says, here is what the philosophers say, here is what people experience. But we looked at it from a different point of view, like what is confusing us? So we attempt to answer the questions as they come along, and it takes a little while to put each series together. But the goal is really to give people the opportunity to listen and say, okay, I can take this, I don't agree with this, or anything like that, and help them more to self-introspect on their way to their spiritual journey.
Well, and you do that so well. It was funny. When I posted your first episode, someone called me and said, "I think you've posted the wrong link because it has all of these things about Catholicism at the beginning and all the news at the articles at the beginning. And what you did was you just really brought forth what our perception is and and I think also our disappointment in what was known as traditional spiritual communities.
And you know, later on in the series, we talk about how even the well-intentioned people get caught in traps themselves. Us, them, there's no difference in the long run. It's to help us understand and be compassionate to what struggles people go through, and but also to always be self-aware so we don't fall into the traps that many fall into.
And that's I think, I'll just say for me, my work to do and my commitment to the people at Welcome Home is that I continue to examine myself and really take a look at, you know, I like what you said about blind spots. Where are my blind spots? And what do I need to know about myself so that I am being in my own wholeness, integrated into myself?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, at least one person looks at the series. Thank you.
I love what you said about the 3 pillars. Can you explain the 3 pillars? I think that was in it was in episode 6, because I thought that was a very interesting place for people to really understand the contrast and the different aspects of ourselves.
Yeah, well, when I was looking at the evolution of the brain, our primitive ancestors, the core, or what we call the ancient brain, had really 3 strong strict causes to fulfill. One was, you know, hunger. If we didn't feed the tribe, we won't survive. Sexuality, if we didn't procreate, we won't survive. And aggression. And it was very interesting because of all the developments of the human body, the brain is the only one that didn't compromise and resolve into itself, like our hands or feet or heart or anything like that. The brain built layers. So the primitive layer really has to do with hunger, aggression, sexuality. And then over the centuries, we built a middle brain. So one is like the basement, then we built a first floor, and a lot of the emotions are emotional centers are there. And then we built a second story, and that's where the intellect is. And then we wired it all the way through in so many different circuits. But what drives us really is, it's like the furnace in the basement. And if we look, I thought it was a simple concept for us to just reflect on ourselves or observe in people. So if we look at aggression versus placidity, some people, I'll just use that as an example. There's so many people in life who are very aggressive, and there's so many people in life who end up being caught in the placidity. And if either side of the spectrum, it's something that we need to address about ourselves because we won't be complete. And so I work with people on being assertive. You don't have to be aggressive. You don't have to be mute about something. And I have a lot of clients that I see who will come in and say, you know, I'm struggling on my hunger versus satiety pillar. I have this craving to be noticed. I have this desire for money. I find myself really caught up in doing that. So in trying to explain the three, it gives us a chance to self-reflect, but we could also look at world leaders and everybody like that and say, hey, they're struggling on this pillar, on that pillar, and it helps us understand the struggle we all go through.
Mm-hmm. And what really struck me in that, just even for myself, because I aggression, just even in my family system growing up, it was very, very prevalent. And I would go from either I need to be aggressive, or I would be very placid and not be standing up for myself. And like you said, I can be assertive without being aggressive. And that took me a long time to really work through that and find that place of balance within myself. And really rising above that from my own family system. And and I can look at the other pillars and go, yeah, where can I really work on myself in those areas?
Yeah, I thought it would be a simple symbolic process where people can just quickly self-reflect.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what I appreciate in your in a lot of your episodes is you have these very simple, clear tools and techniques to help people focus, whether it's shifting the monkey mind, by changing your dialogue, and or the breathing, right? And I noticed there were so many comments on the YouTube page when people actually used the breath and had that moment of hold and release and exhaling fully and completely, and how they felt the shift. Yeah. So yeah, where did you get all of these tech tools and techniques from? Where did you call them from?
Yeah, I make myself the subject first, because if there's no sense walking a path and suggesting to people if you haven't walked it yourself. And the breath is a fascinating process, because I was initiated into the very ancient art of the Kriya Yoga, not with the Northwestern one. But there would be a time when I was breathing, and it would be like I could, at one time, when I'm in the middle or in the zone, as we say, for one inhalation and exhalation, it's roughly 3.5 minutes. But fascinating things happen. It's like the breath suddenly smells like honey, or it gives off a flavor, fragrance. So many more modalities just start triggering with just the breath.
That sounds incredible. That because we do a lot of breath work in our meditations at Welcome Home, because one of the focuses is not just to sit there and try and quiet the mind, but actually to connect into the body. Yes. And to really experience ourselves in our body as energy, and that we have the capacity to move the energy. And then also with the physical movement of really experiencing ourselves moving energy around us. Yeah. So as a way of deepening our connection to who we truly are.
Yeah, it's interesting, because the last thing we lose as a human being is our breath. Our heart will stop, but ultimately when the breath stops, we're technically dead. because they put the mirror at the nose and see nothing coming out. And there's a very interesting, simple concept that I think it was Brahmacharya in many centuries ago. He said when he was learning to breathe, because the breath contains on a quantum physics level, it contains much more properties. With its atoms, we call it chi or prana or anything, which is the life force. He used to, when he would breathe in, he would say, God is approaching me. In other words, that breath. When he would hold it, he would say, God is within me. When he was breathing out, he would say, I am approaching God. And when he would hold his breath at the end of that exhalation, he would say, I surrender to God. Because symbolically, with your last breath, you are surrendering to the divine. And so he found that instead of people focusing on the breath, they could say as they breathe in, that God is approaching me. God is hold, God is within me. Exhale, I am approaching God. And when you have that no breath in your body as you exhale, I am surrendering to God. And just little techniques like that. We know, for example, that if you do deep breathing 5 minutes a day, you actually build up the strength of your neurons in your brain.
Yes. Oh, that is beautiful. Just the idea of like, I'm breathing God within me, and that sense of oneness and completeness. For me, that is, it is one of the most, it is the safest feeling for me. It's something that brings me such peace and tranquility when I have that connection.
Yes.
Yes. And so can I ask you, how did you come up with the title of your series? There's something not quite right with spirituality. I'm paraphrasing here.
Yes. Yeah, well, people kept what we noticed when we analyzed the questions that people sent us. They were really saying, what's wrong with spirituality? And, like we were talking about, how come some people are making so much money off spirituality? How come, there's corruption in spirituality? Read about, abuse of people and things like that. And a lot of the questions were people saying something isn't right with spirituality. We need help to understand it from a different point of view, rather than the same sort of approach that we had day in and day out. So we more or less came up on that title. We didn't want to say something is wrong with spirituality.
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting. Do you think that the traditional way of spirituality or religion or dogma, do you think that it's going to eventually evolve into the understanding of oneness, consciousness, the quantum physics, the energy? Or do you think there will still be those holdouts that are saying that there's something outside of us?
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great question because I've struggled with that. And my conclusion at this time, which could change tomorrow, is that it's us. It's the stage of readiness we are. It doesn't matter what anybody else says. So I created this sort of classification for myself, and it helps. So I say there are people who are asleep. They don't know about spirituality and they don't care about it. I'm talking about spirituality. Then awake. People who are aware there is spirituality, but at this point in time, they're not interested. And then the majority of people I call dabblers. We all pass through that, where we dabble and we try to figure out this and figure out that and things like that. And then we finally reach a stage where we at we become students. It's like going to school. We know we have to graduate. Maybe we'll get into university. We don't have a clue what the outcome is, but we discipline ourselves to go there every day. So we have the asleep, awake, the dabblers, the student. And then we have, at the end of that, we have what I call the devotee. The devotee is somebody like yourself. Irrespective of what would happen in your life, you have faith, you have devotion, and nobody can take that away from you. And so, with all the literature and all the different things that we read and different positions and everything, ultimately it ends up as to which stage we are at. So the dabbler may need to look at 15 different approaches before they find something that they really like. And at that stage, we need to give them the opportunity to do that.
Yes. And do you think that, or do you have faith that what we are experiencing on a global level right now is this beautiful divine opportunity for so many of us to move maybe from dabbling into becoming the students, or maybe starting to wake up? Because I can't believe that we would experience this on a global level without without some opportunity for a greater embodiment of oneness, of consciousness, and that it's a nudge for people who are maybe holding back a little bit. What do you think?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I see it on different levels. For example, our body is built totally by nature. Nature is our balancer. You know, trees give off oxygen, we give off carbon dioxide. And what happens is when nature gets ill because of what we do, then nature shows us that get rid of your arrogance. We could drop one little virus on everybody and change the whole process. And, it causes people not to think about themselves alone, but to think of others now and be more compassionate. And nature it's such a matrix of different messages. We're learning that species that we've never seen before are showing themselves up again. People in northern India seeing the Himalayas for the first time in 34 years. So it's an awakening. And I think the struggle is that human beings, they get caught sometimes in not adapting to the awakening. They try to hold on to the old process and hope it never changes. But this is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for us to be more aware of everything around us and the part we play in the world.
I think so. And I think the people that are holding on are the ones that, in my own experience, are really struggling. I think there are also people that I think there's a collective grief that is happening. There's a grief that has happened from the amount of people that have passed on that couldn't be with their families or have that kind of loving support. I think we have our own individual grief, some of us, for what was and the unknown of what is to become, especially if you don't have a lot of faith. And then there's the fear as well. And I also suspect that within that there are some mental health issues that will start to emerge from people being isolated.
Oh, yes. There's so many ways we could approach this. One of the things that I've found that are helpful to people is that we have learned as a culture to always feel that we need to know, that we always need to figure out and have an outcome. And this is an opportunity because even in the ancient scriptures and whatever religion, they talk about the wisdom of not knowing. That when you're able, basically, we're talking about surrender and faith and devotion in the long run, like the devotee, because we struggle against not knowing. We don't surrender to it. Although when we look at life, it's obvious we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but our mind tells us that there's a path and a plan. And this coronavirus just pulls the carpet from under us and tells us, be comfortable with not knowing, because that's where the power of spirituality really is, because we leave the ego, we leave a lot of our previous thought beliefs and systems and things like that. And we just, if we can live, it teaches us to be mindful. And I think the wisdom of not knowing is part of the spiritual journey. And we're getting that gift at this moment.
Yes, we are. I call it the liminal state, right? Where it's like, yeah, we're just sort of hanging out. And you're right, our mind wants to draw so many conclusions, and there are no conclusions to draw because I know nothing.
Yeah, because you know what happens is we usually have people around that we can go to and we can share, and we remain within that sort of belief system. But now everybody is on the same level playing field, and nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. But we know what we need to do as individuals and as human beings. And this COVID virus gives us that wonderful opportunity to see how we could, understand ourselves more.
Mm-hmm. It is a wonderful opportunity. And, and when I say it's a wonderful opportunity, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's always easy, that there aren't feelings and emotions that come up and fears. And it's really, how do I go back into trusting and knowing that I am still, part of the beloved, and I'm okay, even though there can be a lot of things going on at the same time. It's sort of like, it's a bit like multitasking.
Yeah, yeah. And as I say, we would be in that place of inner peace, which I mentioned in the YouTube series, if we feel comfortable that we're safe, we are loved, and we're worthy.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who feels those three things feel fulfilled.
Yes, yes. It's interesting, in the class that I was teaching last night, the 7 keys to freedom, we had a long talk about safety and how we've used so much of our attachment to the outside world to create this illusion of safety. And
Exactly.
it's a house of cards. And that really the only true safety is from being, from understanding that, we're one with everything. And, I say, I am God and
Yeah.
you are God. Everyone is God. And that we have those incredible aspects and capacities within us to exude that, embody it, and live from it. And that's what creates the safety.
Exactly.
And so, can you tell me a little bit about Sinem and your work with the teenagers and depression and your meditation work with them?
Yeah. Well, is to let you know that we completed this study, and that it's published in 2 different journals, and we changed it to the title "The Breathing Room." So we are updating the app now, and basically, what the results were, we did a randomized control trial. And to build this program, eventually we had the teenagers and young adults decide on what was satisfactory to them, because I realized that what I thought they wanted was never what they wanted. And even words we used, we had to change spirituality around and things like that. But when we completed the study and we created the program, we won the Lieutenant Governor's Award for innovative, true innovation. Health Canada named it as their top e-learning program for the year by Health Canada. So we had countries contacting us and asking us about it because they said, we thought this would be great, but we never thought it could be done. And basically what it is helping people understand themselves. And what we found was that we're medical. We go through ethics and scientific review, so you got to have a medical diagnosis for it to go through. So yes, we did all the depression rating scales and they improved, but not only did they improve, but a year later, people were not depressed again. Whereas with antidepressants, when you stop it, 40% of people will become depressed in a year again. And they talked about how they were actually feeling better. But the study, one of the aspects of the study that I really loved was what changed within each person. And they described, we did a qualitative analysis of this, and they said they were less self-centered, they were more caring about others, they were more aware of the struggles others had, like bullying and things like that. They would take a more positive stance, and they found that it helped them to not only get over their own grief and suffering, but it helped them to feel more positive about the world. And just so you know, for example, the province of Newfoundland, Labrador has it available for, I think, every grade 8 child in that province. And the Northwest Territories are now working with us so that it's available, because they say, we have 16-year-olds who come to school with their kids and depression, and we have no healthcare resources. So at the moment, I think we have it available to about 79,000 Canadian youth. And we have just redone the app, which we will be releasing in the next month or two. And so people can just download it and use it. And institutions can use it. Mount Royal University uses it for their students. Anytime they're distressed, they can go to that app. And we've had meetings with Health Canada and other governing bodies who are looking at including it in resources that are online, because as we know, young adults and adolescents, they don't really ask for help, or most of the time they don't even know that they need it.
Mm-hmm. That is remarkable. What an incredible gift to these young people. And I know that you've put your heart and soul into it. I am curious, what word did you use for spirituality that would appeal to young people?
Yeah, we didn't use it at all. We talked about them. So for example, instead of saying connectedness, we use the term, you are not alone.
Ah, interesting.
So we actually had the young adults at Mount Royal University, the communications class, go through the entire dialogue, and they ripped it apart, much to my ego distress. But, they came up with how they wanted it to sound.
Oh, very good. Did they use dope and this is dope and it's lit and all those things? They have a whole new language, the young people.
I know. It's fascinating. Just on that topic, I got a text from a young man a few years ago, and I didn't know who participated because I was blind to who the participants were. It was just a number. And he told me, he said that he was driving along the road in the middle of winter, and there was a lady who had a flat tire at the side of the road. And he said before it would not have been on his radar. And he stopped and he helped change the tire. And he said the lady was so grateful to him, but he felt that the lady couldn't understand how grateful he felt to be able to do it.
Oh, that's beautiful. I mean, to be able to have our young kids just open their hearts is, in a time that is so uncertain for them as well, is it's a remarkable feat, and what a gift. I do have a teacher that is asking me, asking you, what is the name of the app again? So that
it's called The Breathing Room. And what we've done, we've modernized it because technology and everything changes. So it should be released within the next month or two. The isolation and the COVID virus slowed us down.
Yeah.
We also are doing one for adults from 24 to about 45, and it's called Inner Access. And we're in the process of developing it. But what we're using, Helen, is we're using virtual reality so that the people will be in the experience. So when we introduce the techniques, they're actually sitting amongst the stars. And if they look up, they see the sky. They look behind, they see the woods. And so everywhere you look, you're in nature or in some beautiful setting while you go through the process.
Are you using the virtual reality
goggles? Yes. So we're doing it in sort of layers. So you can just listen to the audio if you want. You could listen to the audio and video. If you get the goggles, you could get the whole experience. So if, for example, somebody has panic attacks on planes, they can just listen to the audio or the video. They can use different dimensions. If they're traveling on the train or something like that, they can just plug it in and do some of the techniques.
That is fantastic. When would that be available? I want one of those.
We're in the process of setting up the content for that. We had to stop a little and complete the breathing room and put in animations and things like that. But as soon as the breathing room is released, we are going full tilt into it's called Inner Access.
Maybe we could have you come to Toronto and do a demonstration for us at Welcome Home.
Sure, I'd love that.
I know, that would be fantastic. Yes. And so what else is next for you?
Well, I'm never really sure. I had mentioned to you earlier, a lot of the questions about understanding ourselves, like in the series that we're doing, I'm now looking at the research about free will and destiny and determinism, and how much control we have over our destiny. What does the research say? What does the philosopher say? How do we experience it? So it's also a self-learning thing for me as well. But an exciting area that I'm looking at is with a group that I work with, astrophysicists and quantum physicists. We're looking at measuring consciousness. So when people meditate or they pray, you can actually get a measurement on what we call the subatomic level or the quantum level, where we can actually measure the change that's taking place. So we could see who are frauds and who are great gurus.
Oh, can you, you were telling me about an experience that you had in India in November. Would you be willing to share it with people tonight?
Sure.
Yes, because it's quite the experience.
Because I have a great group of friends. And many of them are well known. They're in labs and they do work in um, scientific work in the quantum physics level. So the place I go to in India is a very sacred place.
Mm.
And one of the things that they wanted to do was hook up the guru who's there and who is always open to looking at new fun, and hooked up the guru, and it just went off the map. So I was hearing these scientists, oh my God, this can't happen. We have to have an upper limit, a lower limit. Oh my gosh, we can't use this measurement. And so what they had was one of the colleagues there, they had them sit and let the guru say some prayers, mantras, aimed at the person, and they could just see the steady rise in consciousness in this person. So they were able to measure people going into temples, going into prayers, going into meditation. And they're still doing that. They're doing it in North America. And the last part is they're analyzing the data now to have the paper published. And but it's fascinating because what was philosophical before is now becoming scientific as we understand deeper levels of science.
Which excites me to no end, because that day when there is that complete integration and understanding, I think that's when I think for me that the tipping point happens. Yeah. Right? Everything changes. Everything changes in the way we see things, the way we do things, our medical models, our communities, the way we interact with one another. And for me, that's exciting.
And you know, for example, in our study in depression, and basically CINEM looks at mental health and non-medical approaches to mental health. And but there is research to support what we're doing. There's a colleague of mine, Dr. David Coles, and he looks at the gene, and he looks at the people who are most stressed. And 71% of the gene has what we call inflammatory responses, and 29% has anti-inflammatory responses. So what he did was he took the worst people when he did genetic studies that had 71% inflammatory, and he studied them, their lifestyle, nutrition, and everything. Now, in medicine, they taught us that once your gene is programmed that way, you're into chronic illness. Well, what Stephen did is he didn't know what to do. So he thought, okay, let me take these people, and some of them practice Qigong, some of them practice meditation, pranayama, or breath work. Let's have them practice something that is, quote, spiritual. And what he found was that within 60 to 80 days of those who participated regularly, their gene programming was actually starting to change. And so the latest is we can rewrite our genetic problems.
Yeah. Yes, I do believe that. I believe that our consciousness, our environment, our energy can shift so much of our biology. And so how exciting that those kinds of studies are being created and recognized.
Yes. And you know, it gives people confidence, because for the dabblers, they need some confidence. We've got to give them something that is, you know, backed by some little part of science at this time, and look and allow science and the philosophy of spirituality to meet and to dialogue and see where each fits.
Mm-hmm. And that's where, you know, there can be such incredible patience and compassion for people that are needing that. And now we have this body of information to hand over and say, yes, this works and encourage them versus just trying to convince people to have blind faith. You can't have blind faith until you've actually gone through and demonstrated again and again and again to oneself that, oh yeah, this works.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That's when you become the student.
Yes. And that excites the student as well, I believe, because then they discover their own inner power, and that will keep them on the path. And there's nobody else has to do anything. It's just allow them to do it.
Exactly. Because ultimately, I tell people, when you are on the spiritual path, when you become enlightened, which eventually, hopefully, each one of us will be somewhere in the future, that we realize we did the heavy lifting. The teachers and gurus, and they are there to guide us, but they cannot be accountable for our journey. We have to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And how many lifetimes does it take to become enlightened?
I have had people followed people. It's been so spontaneous. So when people tell me sometimes that, oh my God, it's many lifetimes, I tell them, I say, I have known people who you could be enlightened tomorrow. So prepare for it. Assume you're going to be enlightened and stop the drama of thinking it's going to take so long or anything like that.
I love that. Assume, expect it's going to happen. Expect that enlightenment. Yeah, because then it does stop the drama.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. You are such a gift in the world. What you give and what you create and put out there. One last thing. Can you just talk a little bit about your project in India? Because again, I think I remember when you were starting this, and I think it's because you wanted to show your son what could be done.
Yes.
And I don't know if that was Anil or your younger son.
Anil.
Anil. Okay.
And I was telling him, because I came from a very poor village in Trinidad, in the Caribbean, and mud huts, thatch roofs. I wasn't supposed to be here if you follow the normal rules. You know, it was colonial times and everything like that. And when I was approached about this semi-desert village where this holy person lived, and they had no resources. And now we have 2 hospitals. Can you imagine? People walk for miles. We have MRIs, CT scans, and Helen, an MRI costs 2,000 rupees, which is about $50. Okay. Wow. And so a lot of my colleagues go there now and have a full body workup for $50 or $60. But we're doing heart valve replacement and things like that. So we have a general hospital and a specialized one with a lot of technology. We have 2 schools now, because many of the kids going to the school, it's the first generation that's being educated. We're teaching them to recycle, so that we have a whole recycling plant where they bring their carts and they dump everything and they load up with manure and they go back and help the depleted soil. We've just crossed 1.2 million trees reforested in the area, so that the temperature has dropped by about 2 degrees. And we have a program where the kids in school, we're teaching them to create programs where they can go out into the community and teach the elders about sanitation and hygiene and everything. And we got a lovely opportunity from company Rocky Mountain Soaps here in Canmore. And they went to India and they took all the natural ingredients that were available for these people, like the spices that grow there and the milk and everything, and taught them to make soap so that they can use it and wash their hands and everything like that. And it's a beautiful soap, milk soap, you know. So we have a nursing school. We now have a technician school where laboratory technology they can learn. And so the whole area, we've given them an opportunity to be better than what they thought they could be. And, you know, when I was in that poor village, there were so many people who from North America sent boxes with clothes and books and everything. They reached out to us there. And you know, we have to carry it forward.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so if someone or we wanted to support that project now, what would be the best way to do it, and what would be needed during this time as well?
Well, yes. One of the things that we've tried not to do is not to make it like, you know, like a public sort of fundraising thing.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted people to go and experience it, because once they experienced it, they found, I don't have the money to give, but while I'm here, I will go to the school and teach English. Or physicians will go and work with the cardiologists or the emergency physician. So it's cash or in kind. And the beauty about it is when you arrive there, everybody is the same. You don't even know half the time until people leave or they want to tell you what they do. They're there to just do service. So we've had movie stars go there, we've had rock stars and everybody. And just to end that point, when the University of Calgary, the global vice dean, she went with one of the directors of cinema. And as they reached the guest house, this man, East Indian man in his dhoti, came out and took the bags and took them upstairs. And she was saying, well, do I tip him or not? And our director said, no, you don't know who it is. And then they sat down for dinner and they found out it was the Indian Minister of Health for the government of India, who had just picked up their suitcases and took it upstairs. So it's like a level playing field there, which is so beautiful.
It is. It's a level playing field of sacred service.
Yes.
Eva, right? So that's remarkable. I love it. And my wheels are turning. I think Welcome Home could do a community group trip over to India and be of service. We've got a lot of very talented people there that could offer up a lot of
and you know, it's so beautiful because it's so sad as well. When we were there once, this mother came up to my wife, Anne, and she had this beautiful little daughter, and she kept pushing the daughter to Anne. So Anne was saying hello and everything, because we've encouraged the kids to come and talk, because in the school they learn Sanskrit, Tamil, Hindi, and English. And when we left, one of our friends said, do you know what was happening there? And Anne said, no. She said the mother was asking you if you would be open to taking her child. And I thought, a mother to give that child the opportunity to go to North America and have a better future. Oh, it touches you when you see that sort of process taking place.
Yes, because that would be one of the most selfless acts of a mother to.
That's right. And no mother should ever have to do that.
Yeah. Wow. You have, you've done just so many remarkable things. And it has been an incredible pleasure just to hear your wisdom, your heart, because everything, as brilliant as you are, it just comes through your heart so clearly and resonantly, if that's even a word. But I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate, and I want to say thank you, Charlotte, for your assistant, for setting all of this up. And what an absolute pleasure it has been to have you with us. Thank you.
Well, I just want people to know that you were one of the people that helped me open up that heart. And I'm eternally grateful because you're still there.
I am. Yes, I'm still standing and still there at Hoffman and still doing my thing. But, it's so interesting because, in my journey, you have put me on quests. You were the one who put me on the heart math track and really understanding the power of the heart and doing that training. You were the one who first introduced me to it. You supported me as I went through my ministry. And now I look at just even what's next for Welcome Home in terms of exploring consciousness and oneness without walls, right? Right now we are without walls, but without the walls of dogma. And really embracing all the opportunities to really come home into ourselves. And you've been a big influence in my own journey. So thank you.
Thank us.
Thank us. So, and I want to say thank you to everyone on Zoom for tuning in and everyone on Facebook Live. Bless you. Thank you. And I encourage you to have a look at the series on YouTube. You can watch the first one right on our Welcome Home Facebook page. And then what you can do is subscribe to the series, click the little bell, and you get the notifications of when the next one's coming out. What a gift. Thank you.
Thank you.
And bless you, everybody. Have a great, great night. And I do have people saying, thank you, Dr. Rickhi, and thank you for your wisdom. So they're writing in, and I'm sure there are a number of comments on Facebook as well.
Thank you. Thank you. All the beautiful people who had time to listen to me, I send all my love to them and everyone that they belong to.
Yes. Well, bless you. Thank you, everybody. I am going to sign off. And Dr. Badri, Rickhi, I will talk to you soon. Well, we still will get together in Calgary at one point. I am coming out in July, so I'll let you know.
Good. Look forward.
Okay, thank you. Many blessings.
Bye.
Bye for now.